Hi everybody and welcome to the Kidney Coach YouTube channel. I am naturopath Fiona Chin, co-founder of Kidney Coach and Kaigenesis, a range of supplements designed to support people diagnosed with chronic kidney disease. And I'm joined again today by the wonderful, the fabulous, my beautiful friend, Dr. Morgan Camp. For those of you who have not met the beautiful Morgan before, he is a physician in integrative and functional medicine, and he's actually becoming one of the leading voices on AI in functional medicine. Not from the tech side though, but from the physician side. He studied every major AI tool in healthcare and he's published on it. He's actually built a clinical intelligence platform for physicians. And I wanted to have him on because whether you love AI or you're absolutely terrified of it, whether you like it or not, it's going to come into your medical practice if you're a practitioner, or if you're a patient, it's going to come in and your medical practitioner is going to be using it. So today, Morgan and I wanted to have an honest conversation about the pros, the cons, the things nobody's talking about, physician to physician. Morgan, welcome back to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, Fiona. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, as always, so great to see you. Good to see you thriving. And I'm doing very well. I'm loving what I'm doing now. It's great to feel like I'm hitting my stride with balance between patient care and new, creative, innovative things. The work in AI is so creative and innovative, and it's so motivating for me to be able to think how we can help more people and help more physicians, and help the world get better medical care.
It's really interesting because I've known you for a while now, and I really have seen you. This is your thing. I feel like you've found the thing that maybe you're here to do. You glow more. Like the hours that you're putting into it and just how passionate you are about it. I mean, I know that's how you feel about working and supporting patients, but bringing this in behind it is really actually very exciting to see you do. So I'm super excited for this conversation. So why don't we just start with the real basics? When we talk about AI in medicine, what are we actually talking about? Because I think most of us hear AI and, whether we picture a robot replacing us or whether we picture losing the nuance or the connection that we have with our physicians. Walk me through how you see this and what AI in medicine actually means to you.
Well, yeah, we can talk about what it means to me versus, what's happening now.
Mhm.
What it means to me is when it's done correctly is it takes the administrative and data collecting and all the paperwork and all the things we do now before a patient walks in the door and while they're there, all the sorting through the labs, all the trying to remember all the data points, all the trying to remember the history. Did they get better with that treatment or worse with that? All those things that we have to think about clinically and hold in our mind and in our space. What if all of those were held for us? And when the patient comes in, we can instead focus on talking to them, looking them in the eye, remembering what it is that brought us into being a physician and a clinician, and actually get to know them a little better. I spend more time talking about their personal life and their stress levels, et cetera. All the things that really light us up as physicians, but we rarely have the time to talk about. What if we actually had more time to do that because their administrative burden was lessened? That's the AI of the future I see.
Well, now that's amazing because I think at the moment, and we can talk about this in more detail, but that's not actually what we're seeing. Maybe the basic platforms like ChatGPT or maybe even Claude being used for. Do you want to talk about what we're actually, because
Yeah.
that's how I imagine using something like an AI versus what maybe we're seeing it or what maybe patients think practitioners are using it for, which is to make the outcomes or make the decisions. At the moment, that's sort of how it's worked, right? Or how it's working for people.
Yeah, exactly. So, a lot of physicians have scribes, they're recording their sessions with their clients, they're having their, assessment plans put together, which is of course useful. That saves a lot of time and creates summaries and is useful. And then we've got that, and we're plugging in it into different plugging it into different places. I mean, one of my advisors is a very well-known physician. He's like, basically he's spending all his time getting the data, pulling the names off of it so he can put it into ChatGPT or Claude anonymously without the protected health information there, so that he can figure out what's going on, because that's a huge thing for us to discuss, as well as the privacy issue.
Mhm.
But right now, what we're having is, we got all these basically AI tools that are just glossy, like interfaces that all are like part. They all answer part of the issue. They all maybe, okay, help with the scribe, or help with the interactions, or help with this, or what about this research, or what about this? But nothing's really pulling everything together. So at the end of the day, the physician is having to go to 5 different things and pull things off the EMR, put it here, put it here. And at the end of the day, the information overload is really what the big issue is, right? And so, how can we lower that cognitive load on the physician and lower the information overload?
So tell me more about the platform that you're building and coding out, and how that's going to work differently from these standard platforms that we're seeing, like things like Claude and Sight and ChatGPT, that people know as the popular ones at the moment, and what a practitioner focused AI platform that you foresee would be super useful in what you're building versus what we've got at the moment. How are they different?
Well, they're different in two main ways. They're different on the first off, the structure we're using behind it, the AI we're using is inherently different than what everyone else, than what Claude and ChatGPT are doing. So we're building our own AI platform, basically. So that's one, but also the user experience is different. So we'll first talk about the user experience, where basically Physician Logic Squared is the product we're building. And the idea is the physician logic squared is it came to me in the idea to how could I clone my own thinking? How could I clone the way I think? How could I clone how I connect dots across different systems? And how could I train an AI to do that? So luckily I've been able to do that. We have brought together an amazing tech team, and all the necessary ingredients have just kind of magically and synchronistically come together to help me do that. So the idea of Physician Logic Squared is to bring that, so you can bring your patient. So first off, we have a HIPAA compliant platform built on a built on a. We don't need to go into the technicalities too much. It's built by one of the main guys who helped create, who was working in the Obama administration and other administrations in DC when they were building HIPAA. So he knows it from the ground up. He's worked with he's worked with Blue Cross Blue Shield. He's worked with WebMD, and I don't mean worked with them. He's the chief technical officer of them, like he was the head of them. So he knows HIPAA. So we have a platform that from the beginning is HIPAA compliant and is CMIA compliant, which is California compliant. So basically, we have the most private way possible to store data and privacy. So that's the first thing that was the first thing that I wanted to solve. And then the second thing that we do in our privacy is that differentiates us from others is that our data. So when you go, whether you're a patient or a practitioner, when you upload your information into ChatGPT, we'll just use Chat as the standard one. Basically, how it works is it takes all of everything you put in there and it stores it like basically we think of it like a cloud. It's called a RAG, but you can think of it like a cloud around you, and it's stored there permanently.
Oh, goody! That's nice and compliant and private.
Permanently, permanently, and not only permanently, they use that to train all their models.
Okay, so people uploading their
Everything.
diagnostic tests, which is what I know people are doing, that's
Yeah.
been permanently stored. That's got to be safe.
Yeah. And then we just had a big issue in the US because now the government's saying we want access to all of that for everybody.
Yeah, that was
And the
what
Chat GPT said, absolutely, we'll do that.
go. Yes.
So first off, we're in a platform that doesn't do any of that. The
Okay.
model the model never reads your data. So we first off, when your data goes in, we take the PHI off so that we're not dealing with a lot of personal health information. PHI means personal health information. So we're working with data that doesn't have a lot of doesn't have a lot of risk, we could say, on one hand. But the bigger issue is we have a proprietary way to make it so that the data is not being shared with third parties, period. So even like there is now Claude Health and ChatGPT Health, right? And they say that is anonymized. They're not using your data, but do you trust them? Do you trust them? They just said they give all the data to the government.
Yeah.
Now, which one is it? Is it private or are they giving all the data to the government, right? And so, it's also, so that's the first thing we did: privacy, health data protection, et cetera. The second thing we've done is we're creating. So when you use ChatGPT is what we call generative AI, generative LLM. And what that means for all the listeners, and it's super complex. I'll try to make this as simple as possible. It's basically a mathematical algorithm based on the probabilities of language. That's the easy way to talk about AI. So when it answers a question, it's just based on math and AI. It doesn't know an answer. It's just predicting it based on how you use words and how words are used in our society. And that's great for so many things. It can talk exhaustively about a disease, but the problem is when you want to diagnose or treat a disease, we now have good studies showing that it has somewhere between a 3 or 4% hallucination rate. And what that means is it blatantly gives the wrong answer. And not only does it give the wrong answer, I mean, I've seen times where it's the exact opposite of the right answer, and it doubles down. It'll be very firm on that. So
Yeah.
if you got a 4% error rate across a lot of patients over a lot of period of time, that's a big error rate. And, that might get better, but I'm not certain it's going to over time. Because again, this is just that's the weakness of LLMs. It might not ever change.
Yes,
Um,
it's interesting. Sorry to interrupt you, I had a patient,
it's
someone I mentor, reach out to me yesterday, and she's like, "You're the bioregulator queen. Am I hallucinating? Overgen. It's for the liver, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's for the liver." She's like, "ChatGPT is arguing with me that it's for the ovaries." And she said, "Now my patient is arguing with me because she put it in there." And she's like, "I now it's gaslit me." I doubt myself. I'm like, "Overgen is for the liver. You're not hallucinating. Give it this link. It'll retrain it." But it's
yeah.
crazy.
Well, so you did what we're doing. We're creating verified clinical intelligence with physician logic. So we've got a proprietary method in which we're building this. And again, we've got the best tech team in the world, I think, working on this. And that's what we're doing. So we're giving it. So what you just said, what you gave it information to educate it, right? Well, it already has that. The thing is that he's already read all that. Thing's read everything on the planet. It probably you would assume it's already read that. I mean, maybe it has, but it probably has. The problem is it's read everything else too, and it does. So when it hears ovary, it thinks ovogen, it thinks ovary because that's 99.99999 times out of a million that's going to be ovary, right? So
Yeah.
you hit exactly right. Generative AI hits weaknesses, but if you could create a system where instead of it educating itself on all of the texts of the world, what if we educated an AI system on the best functional medicine science, the best functional medicine evidence, the best functional medicine influencers and authors and the keystone research? What if we did all that instead? Wouldn't that be a better model to work from? So that's how we're thinking of it, right? We don't need we don't want our model to be influenced by pharmaceuticals, for example. We don't want it to be influenced by the bias of pharmaceutical science. So this is what we're building. And so in the way we're doing it, again, we're building in a way where we can verify the information, where when you get a readout, so you put all your clinical information in, and we'll have a patient facing version. So our goal will be to have a patient facing version where the patient can have their own access to all their medical records and how and why and what the doctor prescribed for them and why. And actually, they'll have all the same reasoning that the doctor had. So that's our goal, is to have that. And we will have for the physician, basically here is the likely diagnosis, X, Y, and Z. And here are the studies supporting that. And here's the reasons why we say that. And we have a confidence of blank percentage that this is correct.
So why are hospitals and other big institutes that aren't using platforms like this pushing so hard to have AI integrated? Because my understanding is when they're pushing for AI, they're pushing for the generated AI
Exactly.
about versus the verified, which is what you're building and talking about.
We've invented something nobody else has, and they just don't have this. Yeah. You're exactly right. Yeah, we think as soon as everybody finds out about this, that we could use this for a lot of different. I mean, we picked the hardest freaking thing in the world to start with. Yeah, if we just picked like you could pick much easier topics, and just like mainstream cardiology would be a relatively straight. I mean, that's not simple, but it's a lot less complex than functional medicine or
Yeah.
any mainstream just like subspecialty. Any of those could use this technology. So yeah, basically, and this is where the future is going. We already know that. So we're creating what's called specific models. So this is the future. So the future will be, groups of doctors and lawyers and professionals will start creating their own models, and you will be able to do that easily. And that's there will be more and more of this in the future. It'll become easier and easier to do as like, for example, as we learn how to do this, then we'll become, it's like processes will be created to do this for others as well. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's so important because what you spoke to is like the difference between functional medicine and mainstream, which, becomes narrow and boxed, where we, for a cardiologist, we're suddenly no longer thinking about potentially the immune system, or we're not thinking about the gut. Whereas functional medicine practitioners, we're thinking about everything and how it interacts all the time, which to your point is why it must be so much harder to build a model that does that. And I guess my concern with AI was that because of it's generative, it's going to silo think as well, potentially. So the model that you're building is going to work outside that framework of siloing. It's not going to be heavily weighted towards big pharma, which, I definitely see that if I'm plugging in the background, it's definitely weighted that way. So how long have we got to wait for your model? Before we have to hang out with these generative models? Like, do you have a timeline? What's happening with that? Is that something that's, it's going to be a long build, or is it something that because it sounds like you've done so much already, that once it's, getting closer to traction and getting rubber on the road, that we will be just sort of waiting for yours to come out?
Yeah, well, thanks, Fiona. Yeah, our goal is to have what we should have. We've got a demo. The idea of have a working model in physicians' hands within about 2 months. That's our goal. And
Okay, so
so
that's
now early March. Yeah, so yeah, even sooner. So maybe mid-April 2026 is our goal, something around there. And we started with a full functional medicine build. Then I did have a few sleepless nights, we could say. So we decided to, and a couple of really key advisors. Luckily, I've got some of the most like very high level, amazing advisors who well known people in functional medicine. And they're like, maybe you should narrow the scope a little bit. Think about doing that. So we had that same idea on the same day, and I was like, I think that's a real good. I had the same idea that they confirmed. I was like, I think so. So we basically decided to start with a gut brain axis to begin with. Is that's I think one of the key pillars of functional medicine is the GI tract, and I have a personal connection to the connection between gut health and brain health. And so, I thought that was wise to do it with all of the new technology, the 16S technology, and all of the amazing new GI testing now. I'm seeing such amazing results in all of my patients when we really focus on their GI and use all those technologies to look at the toxins that are affecting brain function, and I've learned how to pull the levers and to give treatments for those in a really cool way. And so we're looking to start with that, and as soon as hopefully within 6 months after that, we'll have the goal will be to have full functional medicine model. We're doing all of functional medicine. Yeah.
So I've got two questions for you. One
Yep.
is, will this allow practitioners without functional medicine training to be able to
That's our
apply?
goal. Yeah.
Right. Okay,
Yep.
so that's one. And then what I'd love you to do, explain to me, for someone that hasn't, I really want to get this verified part. So if a physician's listening, so they really understand what this verified part you're talking about, because I guess that's going to be the big nuance between functional and non-functional, right? So what does that actually mean in practice versus like the generated AI like ChatGPT? Like, just walk me through that so people really understand why your model is so much better.
Perfect.
Feel
Yeah.
like
Okay.
that's so important.
Thanks, Fiona. That's perfect. Yeah. So what we call ChatGPT is black box, meaning it gives you an answer, but it doesn't tell you why.
Yes, yes.
So our verified clinical intelligence engine will have, here is the problem. Here are the studies supporting our recommendation. Here's the study supporting the diagnosis. Here are the information supporting the treatments, etc. You might want to consider additional labs. You might want to consider additional differential diagnosis. So the other difference between us and everyone else, we are not telling the doctor what to do. We are helping you. Hey, have you considered these three diagnoses? Did you consider these treatment options? Did you look at this? Did you consider ordering this lab? So again, we are trying to be a partner with the physician. And it's back to the name, physician logic squared. We're trying to be partners with the physician to make the physician's job easier and to make the health outcome better for everyone, the doctor and the patient and the world at large. And yes, Fiona, we think the probably biggest adoption for physician logic squared will be new physicians. There's a flood of new doctors coming to functional medicine. So wouldn't it be amazing if, I mean, this was my motivation from the beginning. Like I see all my expert clinician friends who are, they're working at full capacity. Some of them can, I mean, I can't do this, but some of them work 10, 12 hours a day, 5 days a week seeing patients, and yet they can still only help so many people. And there's only so many people that are at the top of their game. And you got this pyramid in functional medicine where you got, how many are at the top? There's quite a few, but maybe what? I mean, not 50 to 100 maybe that are really, really good. And how many
Yeah.
people can they see? And then at the bottom, you got all these new doctors running out of internal medicine, running out of the hospital. It seems like COVID actually has accelerated people getting out of that scenario. And but where do they go for training? The training has gotten more fragmented, more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people trust it. So like, can you imagine if we came to a platform where actually it's educational? We're telling you why we're recommending this. And so the data is really there. The train of reasoning is there, so it's verified in the fact that we will show you exactly where the data comes from, the studies supporting it, and why we're recommending it. And it's not, yeah, and that will include things like scientific references. It will also include things like clinical expert opinions, because there's not studies on everything in functional medicine. So it won't all be just studies. It'll all be, hey, this is what clinical experts do.
Okay, that's awesome. So, how is that going to change the actual patient visit? What is it going to look like in practice?
Well, it's more like my patient visit I had earlier today. It's like, we spend more time talking to the patient, and then in the dots I had dots connected today, but, it turns out I was able to really think a little deeper about the case, and to realize, hey, we lowered I have a patient. She's an amazing woman on all levels. And, she saw her labs went to an outside doctor who saw that her TSH was low. And so the doctor recommended she bring, this happened to me 1,000 times, let's lower her thyroid dose. So she lowered it a bit over time. And lo and behold, she's telling me, my exercise, my running is less now. I was running 8-minute miles. Now they're like 10 to 11-minute miles. What's going on? And I'm like, and I didn't go into that subject thinking, oh, that doctor lowered the thyroid. That has to be it. I was literally, I was curious. Is she overdosed or underdosed? And and with AI help, basically we're able to look at it and see the correlation exactly. Her miles were exactly getting her exercise capacity was exactly dropping exactly when we lowered her thyroid dose. And so it's really simple. We just raise her thyroid dose and see how she does. So, more thinking like that. The AI didn't give me the answer to that. That allowed me more time to think through that, because I didn't have to spend all the time connecting the dots and spend all the time bringing all the data together. I could actually just sit and think with her and talk to her and have a real conversation. Yeah.
And I think you just answered my next question, but I think it's interesting. I was talking to someone the other day about this of AI replacing jobs. That's the thing going around at the moment, right? That AI is going to replace everybody's jobs. I saw a reel going around in Australia of just how many people have been let go of their jobs. AI can now code itself. So for some, like the general stuff, so coders are losing jobs. What's the reality of AI replacing doctors? Because I think, that there's a thing where people think that that might actually happen, where they might get replaced, or that they're going to be out of a job. Is that something? I mean, obviously, I'm hearing your model's actually here to help, but that the generative stuff, the basic blood tests, I think people are like, well, why would you go for a doctor for a quick? I've got a cold or flu. I need my pathology read when I can chuck it into AI and it can give me the answer. How do you see it working in with that, with replacing and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, good question, Fiona. I mean, I'm shocked like how fast some of these platforms have come out right now that are replacing doctors. We think there's likely legislation coming out soon to block a lot of those and to say no, we're not. We're going. I'm surprised it's not already happened. I thought for sure certain professions would be protected for quite a long period of time. And I really think they should be, at least until we need to be having a lot of conversations about this, about the ethics and about the privacy and about the need for physicians and who's liable when there's problems from the AI, all these none of these discussions have been had. Things are going way too quickly. So I think that yeah, the way things are going right now, I mean, there's platforms right now in the US, they're just like they're doing everything. Complete prescription, primary care with prescriptions with nothing going on. So one, we think that every AI should have what's called human in the loop. So we're building that in physician logic. So we will have physicians working with us to help us make sure that the platform is working correctly and that we're giving the right output. So that whenever the physician gets outputs, one, we will never tell them what they have to do, and two, they have the option always to say that's a bad idea. And when they do that, it will flag us, and we'll say, oh, that verified data, maybe that's not verified correctly. Maybe there's an error somewhere. Let's find that error. When you're on ChatGPT, have you ever seen a flag? No, there's no flagging. If it's wrong, it's wrong. There's no corrective mechanism. So we're building in we have those corrective mechanisms built in. And we need that in all medical AI. So you need physicians who are overlooking the problems, who are checking out, see what's going on, and we need studies on this too. Like, is it working correctly or not? Is it helping people? And so there's a lot of things we need. Is it going to put physicians out of business right now? I don't think so. I think there will be legislation against that. I think, and I think it just makes. I again think it's going to make physicians be better physicians. Imagine if you could, in a world, I know, and I hate this 15-minute visits that everybody has in the world. I don't have those. I've never had those. But if your 15-minute visit was talking to the patient, you didn't have to do any admin and typing and looking. That actually is not, that's a lot better than what it is now, right? Where the 15 minutes is 12 minutes of looking on a screen and trying to connect a few dots, and you got barely any time to think about anything. So that's the way I see it. I think that's the future I foresee, and the future I want to see is that we have more human AI co-creation, human AI working together. That's where the beauty is. I don't, but I'm not, I've never the idea that I want technology. I'm never the tech. What do they call the word when everybody wants to have technology implanted into their body? I don't really
Right,
want.
yeah, yeah. Cyborgs, not for
Yeah.
you.
And I think if we can work together harmoniously and accentuate each other and learn to do what we're each best at, right? AI is never gonna, sure, you can have empathic conversations with your chat GPT. You can have all these great conversations, but at the end of the day, there's something about the human energy field and being the presence of humans that a computer will never have, right? And that therapeutic benefit of talking to someone and being there with someone, I certainly think there's reason for that. And I think we should have legislation to keep the physicians in the role of physicians, actually. Yeah. I think that's
No,
win-win for everybody. I think that's win-win.
yeah.
Yeah. And maybe it's just functional medicine that keeps that. Maybe allopathic. I mean, do you really, I mean, I guess I can say this right now because there's no allopathic doctors listening, but it is a freaking algorithm they're running. They actually aren't thinking. They really aren't. They really are not thinking. What we're doing requires thinking. It requires consideration. It requires a lot of effort. I don't. Physician logic squared, I think it's going to be amazing. I think it's game changing. I think it's world changing. At the end of the day, is it going to tell you what to do every time perfectly? Hell no, it's not, because every patient's different, right? We could have 100 patients with the identical labs walk in the door. It is not going to be 100 times that, the answer is not the same 100 times, right? It may be 50 times you need to do this, 30 times you need to do that, 20 times, it's never going to be that. I mean, what we're trying to do is give guidance and counsel and advice to the physicians to help them be better physicians in the time slot they have available.
So what I heard there was that the essence of why functional medicine practitioners exist, which is, treating the person, not the disease cause, not effect, that doesn't go away with the AI model built in. It's not going to overtake or think for them. And before we hit record, you really gave me the why, your sort of the legacy left for the world with physicians of why you started to do this. I'd love you to share that with the audience, because I thought that was, it just makes so much sense, and it sort of just ties in with what you were saying just there about what made you decide to do this. I mean, you've got such a thriving, functional medicine practice. You don't need to take on extra stuff and put all this extra stress on you to build this amazing model. But, like, your why is so big. So did you want to share with the audience your why of what made you pivot and decide to take on such a massive project?
Yeah, Fiona, it's, in many ways it's quite simple. It's, how can we create this? How can we give this new paradigm of medicine, functional medicine, integrative medicine, longevity medicine? How can we help more people? How can we help the underserved? How can we help the physician who's leaving internal medicine disgruntled and burned out become like a high level trained physician within a few years with using AI, right? That inspires me. How can we help, people who live in third world countries where there aren't physicians and they don't have access to physicians and they don't have access to a lot? How can we help them live a healthier lifestyle and live longer? How can we help people get off pharmaceuticals? How can we give alternatives to that in a way? This is, in many ways, I'm a revolutionary. I always am. I don't talk about it much, but the idea of bringing, revolutionary change to this planet and to the healthcare system. That's why I'm here. And I love doing something that no one else is doing, and creating this new paradigm so that we can help so many people, and we can help physicians, help basically, take like the essence of that, expert physician who has 20 years of experience, and whittle it down, and give some of that wisdom to the new doctor, the doctor that's only been practiced a couple of years, and allow them to help more people, because I don't know if you've looked around lately, but man, there's a lot of unhealthy people everywhere I go right now, and every day it seems to be worse and worse, and people making worse and worse decisions. This is all the crazy chaos we see in the world is directly related to people's bad health, I think, and and so everything we can do to help them will help stabilize our world and help make our world a better place for all of us to live in, I think. So that's it.
Sure, I think that's a beautiful contribution to make to the world, Morgan. Just a small contribution, just a tiny drop in the ocean there. I mean, what I'm hearing is amazing. Is there anything about the AI platform that you're building that we haven't covered yet? I know it's hard to, because the really technical stuff, is going to be on most people. I guess in summary, what I'm hearing is it's not going to be the big takeaway. It's not generative. It's verified. It's not going to generate answers and hallucinate, which is the problem we have in it with our current AI models. It's a verification process. It'll work alongside the physician to do some of the heavy lifting, so the physician can be more present and engaged with the patient, so they can better almost steer their AI and work with it into where they feel like it's going. Because like you say, that human to human field and the intuitive part of the practitioner. Is there anything else that makes this model so incredibly unique and special that we haven't talked about that you feel physicians listening and patients really need to understand about it?
Great question. Yeah, the way to think about it is just like it's imagine if you had like a expert curbside consult, with like, the best functional medicine specialists. That's the way to think about it, right? Like, what would you ask? How to ask questions, and that's how we're thinking about it. If you could call the best expert in the world in any topic, with a patient that stumps you walking the door, how would that make you feel? Wouldn't that empower you to be a better doctor and empower you to have better conversations with your patients? It's just that's how I see it. It's super exciting. We live in, it's crazy times right now, and it's just so exciting to be able to be in a place where we can do this. I mean, the last takeaway, I think, is it's something that I've been experiencing just building this. Is I'm learning so much. I mean, I have to process all these data and all these everything, and like I just want to stop and read everything. Like, oh, I need to read that study. I need to read that study. I need to watch this. Like, I need like 1,000 of me just to do all these things, and nobody has time for that now. So this is one of the biggest benefits of what we're building is we are bringing the latest and greatest science to your hands. We don't have time to go to all the conferences, all the workshops, to remember everything, right? That's our goal here, is to bring all that science, all that data to your fingertips so that you then have it and you can, hey, oh yeah, okay, I don't know that stuff. Okay. The physician logic squared, you put your patient in, it spits the data out and says, okay, here's the treatment recommendation based on this study. Well, hey, you can just go to this study and read about it now if you really want to, and you got the time to, right? And if you love that, you click the thumbs up, and that gives our model positive impact. And if you're like, oh man, that's the wrong study, that didn't make any sense at all, why the heck did it do that? You do the thumbs down, and then we go in there and fix it so the next time it's better. And so, and imagine in the future, Fiona, if we're using this model 2 or 3 years from now, we will be able to predict new treatments that haven't been used before. We will have data. If you want to, we will have data. You can study your client population. Hey, I wonder how many people that treated for SIBO got better last year. Or, hey, how many people with SIBO did I give this treatment to? Or what if on our physician logic platform, wouldn't this be really cool? 85 doctors who had a patient just like yours chose option A on the treatment, right? And 75% got better. This is where the future is going if we build this correctly. That's why I'm doing it, because I know how to think up through all these things. Me as a physician doing it. If I'm not building it, who's building it? It's a technologist building it with a doctor consultant. I see you guys cannot imagine how much time I spend on this. There is no way a doctor consultant can bridge that gap with a technologist in a short period of time. Even if they had teams of experts in a university setting, the time gap would be so long just to learn to speak the same language. So, I know there are some other doctors working in this field, but we need more doctors working in this field. We need more doctors thinking about this. We need more doctors clamoring for more ethics in this and more transparency and more validated, verified information. That's what we need. Really do. And everybody thinking about privacy first, because it's, these are all the critical topics right now. And we all should be demanding that our products are doing these the right way. Yeah.
Thank you, Morgan. That really sums that up and makes a lot of sense. And I can see exactly what you're building and why and what it looks like. So for anyone listening, where can people learn more about what you're building? Is there a way that people can have a look at that? Is there any conversations that people can follow along with? If people want to invest in something like this, where do they go to find out more about it or get updated when this bad boy's ready? Because I'm like at the front of the line for it.
And you will be getting a very first copy, Fiona. Our website's Physician Logic Squared or physicianlogic2.com. It is not live yet. By the time this is published, it should be live. And maybe we'll put a note in the comments for any practitioners. I've already thought about this. I'll have my team put together a link for practitioners that are interested in a demo model, because we need demo practitioners. Anyone interested from the beginning, that would be nice to have. Yeah, so, and on our website, we'll have links for investors, et cetera. There are lots of great conversations on LinkedIn already. So I'm already talking a lot on LinkedIn right now. We have a lot of information coming out because there's a lot of thought leaders there in AI having these open discussions about AI in healthcare and medicine and the ethics and the privacy and all the concerns we're talking about. So there's a lot of real good conversations happening there right now. Yeah.
Used on LinkedIn, and I'll put the link in below, but just Dr. Morgan Camp, they can find you on LinkedIn via there.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Perfect.
And yeah, and I will get a link again for physicians and other interested parties that want to get in touch with us as well. Yeah.
Perfect. Morgan, this has been incredibly valuable, and I think the biggest takeaway for me, and I hope anyone listening, is that AI doesn't have to replace us, but it can actually make us better physicians. It can remove some of the heavy lifting, stop the burnout, and I think what's the word I find of just the disparity is the wrong word, but just when you feel like you can't make a big enough dent because, like, to your point, there's not enough of us and not enough man hours to be able to look after ourselves, not burn out, and be able to be really present and connect with our patients. I think that's, really, really important. And I think the idea of generated versus verified and the human in the loop, where the physician's always the decision maker, I think that's going to stick with a lot of people. And I think that information is really important to understand the difference between what we're seeing out on the marketplace at the moment versus physician logic squared, which is what you're putting together, and how it will sit as a very different place in the marketplace, plus privacy and all the other good stuff. Morgan, thank you so much. Is there any final words that you want to leave us with before we wrap this session up?
No, just thank you so much, Fiona. It's always a pleasure, and thank you so much.
Pleasure. I will put all the links in below. I feel for anyone listening, this is a really important topic. My great concern in the world at the moment is that physicians are shortcutting and putting everything into a generative AI model, which is getting things wrong, i.e. my example of Overgen the other day. So I will put everything in for Morgan below. Morgan, totally entrust with my life. Everything that he said about why he did this is very genuine from him as a practitioner. So I think this is going to be an amazing model. So we'll make sure all the links get in below. Morgan, we should do a follow-up once you have got a working model and that we've used it a bit, and we can have a chat about that. I think this is really important information for not just our community listening that have concerns about this, but also for physicians listening of how they can make sure they do this correctly and properly. So I really want to thank you for your time, being the amazing human that you are, and we'll have a follow-up when this bad boy is launched. I can't wait.
Thank you.
Make sure you hit like and subscribe. That way you'll get notified anytime we put up more information. If you want to know more about what we do, head to kidneycoach.com. You'll find us on Facebook and Instagram under the same handles, and I'll put all Morgan's details below. Make sure you leave a comment below, and if you want us to follow up anything about AI and its use in medicine, pop it in and we'll do a follow-up podcast about the topic. Thanks for being part of our community. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Morgan, thanks again. Bye.